This third video has a very fancy name, Measures of Central Tendency. Really? All we're talking about is find the middle. That sounds less fancy, but that's really what we're doing in this video. How can we find the middle of the data? And what do we mean middle? So there's two ways that we're going to talk about middles. First is the median. Next is the mean. And they're both valuable to talk about middles, and they both mean something for middle. And we'll talk about how to find them and when to use which. Remember back here when I said, depending on what kind of graph we have, we might use different words. All right, keep that in your mind as we go through this. So the median value is the middle value, and it divides the data into two equal halves. So notice if we order these data values, again, it's really, I love arrows too much, I'm sorry. It's only the middle value for ordered data. If your data is not ordered, you got to order it. Most of the data I gave you in this class is going to already be ordered, but keep it in mind. Middle value of ordered data, it divides the data into two halves. Oh, to the left of 12, we have two numbers. To the right of 12, we have two numbers. 12 divides the data. 12 is the median. Okay, but sometimes dividing data into two halves looks a little different, right? If there's 6 data points, well then, okay, there's 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, but there's there's nothing here. So then we have to take the average. Okay, so the median here is going to be the average of 12 and 15, which gives us 13.5 as our median. So sometimes the median's not actually going to be a data value. Here, the median was 12. It was our data value, and now we have two numbers to the right, two numbers to the left. But here, there was no median in the data. So we had to find the thing in between the two middles, the average of the two middles, if you will. Now, again, there's 3 on one side and 3 on the other. So two ways of finding medians depending on how many data points there are. Now let's compare these medians, one way of talking about the middle of data, to means, another way. And again, if you think of median as the middle value, mean is the average. Okay? So the average of this data, we can calculate this by adding up all the values and dividing how many there are. We actually kind of did that. We found the average of 2 numbers. Add up 2 numbers, divide by 2. The average of 3 numbers would be add up the 3 numbers, divide by 3. Well, we can use fancier math to generalize that. So the mean, sigma x, sigma, again, this is sigma, it's a big version of the Greek letter, and it just means add all of these up. So what this formula is saying is that x bar, which remember x bar is our sample mean, go back to unit 1. Remember the statistic for numerical data was x bar, sample mean, and the parameter for numerical data was mu. Okay? So this is saying to find the sample mean, you just add up all the x's and then divide by n. That's what the formula says. Add up what's after the add up sign, add up the x's, and then divide by n, which is our sample size. The number of values is n. I seem to have fully converted into red. So let's get some practice finding the mean. Using the formula, it says sample mean here. It's going to be add up all the values, 3, 8, 12, 15, 18, 20, and divide by how many there are. There are 6. So when we do that, well, let's bring out our handy dandy formula. Let's see, GeoGebra. Use GeoGebra scientific calculator. Great. If we add up all those numbers, 3 plus 8 plus 12 plus 15 plus 18 plus 20, I'm going to use parentheses so that when I hit the division symbol, the forward slash, and remember, there's also a keyboard entry down here. And by remember, I mean, you may not have seen this ever before, so I'm just going to tell you. You can also calculate division with the division sign or use a fraction bar. Okay. This is a great calculator. It's good practice. This is, oops. Right, this is the GeoGebra calculator. There's a link to it on Canvas. And it's a great resource. Okay. So all right, I didn't actually finish. Let's add everything together and divide by n, which is 6, and then press enter. Now notice it gives it to you as a decimal, or it can give it to you as a fraction. Up to you. So it's about 12.6. Well, it is 12.6 repeating. Okay. So when we do that, we say, okay, this is 12.6 repeating. So we're going to use that vertical bar right there. So the median of that data set was 13.5. The mean was 12.6. Pretty similar. Remember, the median was 13.5. Mean and median were pretty similar here. Remember, mean and median are two ways of measuring the middle. If they're pretty similar, that's good. That means it doesn't really matter much what we use. All right. Now this other data set looks pretty similar, but a little different. We've got an outlier here. I said outliers are usually either special cases or data entry errors. This one's looking very suspiciously like a data entry error. Okay. So the median is still 13.5 here, right? Because the median is just the middle number. Median's still 13.5, but look what happens to the mean. When we add up all these numbers, oh my, we're going to add up a 205 in there. If we do that, we can just change our answer. Make sure you press enter after you update it to get it to recalculate. Now the mean is 43.5. Okay. So 43.5. Now the mean is much bigger. And this is one of the things, this is what we're going to talk about in the next video. Because sometimes when you hear about statistics in real life, you'll hear like, oh yeah, the average American makes this amount of money, or the average person does this many things, or whatever. You have to always wonder, should we really be talking about averages or not? Because average is not the same thing as typical, right? If you put our whole class in the same room as Jeff Bezos, on average, everyone in that room would have more than $1 million. But that doesn't mean y'all are millionaires. Maybe you are. I don't know you when I'm recording this video. Maybe all y'all are millionaires and I don't know it. Remember your math professor, if that's the case. But again, that's an example where median would be more useful. This is a topic that we're going to get into later on. But yeah, next video, we really unpack this. In this video, we just mostly introduce the ideas of mean and median. How can we find these two different ways of measuring the middle?